Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Human Echoes recap for Game of Thrones Season 6, Episode 6. This one's called Blood of My Blood.
Which I expected there to be a little more blood in this episode, in all honesty.
Yeah, I would have liked to see that. By the way, I'm Albert Berg.
I'm Tony Southcott.
And, I gotta start off by saying, I go in the threads afterwards if I have time, and I'll read what people are saying about the episode. We record this pretty quickly afterwards, but I usually have a few minutes. And I saw a lot of people referring to this episode as filler.
Yeah.
And I think that those people do not understand how a story works, Tony.
There were a couple scenes where I was like, this could be considered filler. That was the thought that entered my head. But I was also thinking, like, you've got 4 episodes to wrap up this season, and you've got a lot going on. So, like, you almost need an episode like this to kind of, like, flesh out some details.
Yeah, this is moving things. Just because people aren't getting stabbed in the eyeball every scene doesn't mean we're having filler, okay? The story is moving in a forward direction.
Yeah, it's like, we haven't even seen Walder Frey for, like, 2 seasons, 3 seasons?
My wife forgot. Granted, she doesn't pay attention really close, and she's not, like, hardcore fan like we are, Tony. We're the hardcore fans. But she was like, who is this guy again? I was like, you remember the whole Red Wedding thing where those people died and everything? Yeah, he was that guy. And he's.
You remember Filch from Harry Potter?
I don't remember. I remember the name dropping Blackfish, but the face, I was like, I really have no idea who Blackfish is.
Yeah, we only saw that at Catelyn's dad's death. Like, I think we'd barely seen Blackfish on screen at all. So it's good that they're kind of reminding us of who he is.
It's amazing that over 6 seasons we still have characters, and this may be a failure of the show, honestly, Tony, is that they really could have built him up a little bit more if they were going to have him be such a big presence. I mean, we're still speculating that maybe the Swordmaster will come back at some point because he was a huge deal in Season 1. Like, he made an impression. The Blackfish never made an impression on me.
Yeah,
maybe that's my fault, but
it's all like his legend and things people have said about him, and even then they haven't said a lot yet. It's more that he seems slick and he's able to get away from the Freys, who also seem incompetent to begin with.
But let's dig into this episode, going scene by scene, Tony. We start off with Bran north of the Wall, basically right after the end of the previous episode, where I sort of expected this to happen. I was like, it's great that Hodor held the door. It's great that he was there and that was a heroic sacrifice and everything. But these are undead, not slow zombies in any capacity, and she's dragging a guy who can't walk in the snow.
Yeah.
They're going to catch up pretty quick.
And lucky for her, they kind of split up to go search the forest.
Yeah, I guess there was that, and it's still not exactly clear. I mean, from what we see later, like, they have the guy come and rescue them on the horseback, Did they
Big,
meet Cold Hands?
Mysterious stranger. Yes, this is Cold Hands.
I know I'm saying, but beforehand, did he help them out earlier in the book? Because in the series, because I read in the book where he sort of shepherded them to the children to start with, but he never revealed his identity.
I don't think
can't
he
remember
has,
if he's
but
been in the show yet.
I can't remember the specific details of that, so I'm not sure. He might have at some point been there and kind of putting them towards the cave of the Three-Eyed Raven, but I don't think so.
I mean, they don't recognize him. They're not like, oh, here's that guy who helped us out earlier. Hey, guy. So I think that it's not, but I could be dumb. I'm getting, again, there's the books and there's the show, and a lot of it follows really close together, which we'll get into a little bit later, where they're still doing some plot lines for the books that happened at a little different time, but lead to some interesting stuff. But here he comes and saves them. Awesome scene, by the way, of wailing around with some fire and hitting zombies in the face with it.
Yeah, it's like an incense burner thing, but it catches zombies on fire, and he just whacks people, and it's awesome.
Given that he's a zombie himself, as we find out later on, that's even more metal than it would have been. Like,
Benjen's not like he's about as metal as it gets in these scenes.
Well, yeah, but
even has the hair for it.
If he accidentally swings that thing the wrong way, it like wraps around the horse and smacks him in the face, he's dead.
Yeah,
his fire kills him too.
Well, maybe fire would probably kill most anything if it was on fire, but I'm wondering if it would have the same effect as it would on a White Walker on him, because he's kind of a hybrid since they stopped it before it fully took over. But they talk about that a little bit later.
We can cover that. It's all part of the same storyline. They split it up for us, but I mean, it does. it does make me wonder, like, how far did they wander? Does the Night King still have, like, a homing beacon on Bran? How fast can these guys travel? It seems like they can run pretty quick, and they don't need to rest, as he points out, but they end up resting. Our guys do, and they're still...
They were at least on horseback, so they were able to get a little bit of distance.
Well,
they left
yes,
the cart behind, though.
I will be pedantic and say, didn't the White Walkers have zombie horses?
Some of them did.
In the end of, season 2 or whenever? Never seen those guys come back again.
They were really cool looking zombie horses, too.
Yeah, where are they at? Where's my White Walker zombie horses?
I think it's called Not in the Budget.
Okay.
It's like those Kentucky Derby names that get really weird. Just Not in the Budget is the name of the horse.
But that's one of those things where I don't need to dig too deep into it. I understand that from the standpoint of story, he came and rescued them. They went far enough away. It's like the travel times we've been talking about. Otherwise, if you dig too deep into it, you're just a boring person. And
yeah, just think of it like Skyrim right now. Like, you can't fast travel when there are enemies nearby, but you finish that little encounter and you can just bounce out.
I'm imagining that now. I'm just imagining I'm just like warping in somewhere. Oh my goodness, there these guys are. But they get rescued. They do find out that he's Benjen Stark, which is talk about a callback. Was he was on screen at one point, like he was in the first episode of season 1, right?
Yeah, and he was a little bit there in the mid-season episodes when Jon is at the wall, but before he's sworn in.
Oh, right. He's like, oh, hey, I gotta go take care of some stuff. Bye.
Yeah, like, I would say he had maybe 7 minutes of, like, airtime, maybe 15.
Is it the same actor? Did they bring the same guy back?
It looked like the same actor. I'll have to, like, pull that up real quick.
I didn't look it up, but that's awesome. The guy's just, like, sitting around, like, being in some indie movies, like, man, I hope those Game of Thrones guys need to be in the story again. Because that would be... that's a long callback. We're within... we're less than halfway from the end, more than halfway through this season, Tony. And this is the last full season that they're talking about. They kind of, it depends on how they go with it, but they've talked about doing 2 more 6-episode seasons. So we're getting real close to the end. For him to come in at this point and be like, oh, by the way, here I am again.
And all these Game of Thrones fans just knew that he'd been missing for so long, so it didn't really matter. Like, they were anticipating this.
If you're a fan, especially if you're a fan of the book, this is one of those things that is a theory that's been out there for a long time. It's just sort of like the Tower of Joy, that people really feel that Benjen Cold Hands in the books is, Cold Hands is going to be Benjen Stark, because it makes sense, and it's cool. So this is one of those things that, again, the show gets to confirm for us readers. And as a reader, it's neat to have that idea in your head. And again, not to spoil something we're going to talk about in a little bit, but there's more stuff that's from the books that can still be, like, confirmed coming forward this season. Man, the way
Gravediggers and stuff.
I was thinking of codename Stoneheart. I don't want to go more in depth than that without a spoiler warning, but she's not in this episode, obviously. Yeah. But
she hasn't been. Like, the creator said she wasn't going to be in the series, but they also said Jon was dead, so we can't really trust them.
We'll see. Anyway, that kind of wraps up everything we have to say about him. I think we move forward to Sam's storyline, where he's going home to see
the parents.
His
Game of
parents
Thrones edition
again. Yeah. Which his mom and his sister were a lot nicer. I guess I didn't expect them to be, like, jerks, but they were, like, really nice to him and didn't question, like, because obviously everybody knows if you're in the Night's Watch, you're not supposed to get married or have kids. And he's like, he doesn't say he got married, but he definitely has had children. Yeah. And he's left his post. Again, he has the letter where he's like, I'm doing this under orders, but still... Anyway, nobody gives him a hard time. They're super welcoming of this girl that's clearly way out of her elements. And even before she reveals, somewhat stupidly, that she's a wildling, I think that they could have figured out that she's probably not to the manor born,
yeah,
as it were.
Like she could have easily gone with the whole Mole Town thing, but she just said the one little set of words that ruined that. But yeah, Sam's family was just entirely warm, entirely kind. Like
even his brother's not a giant dick.
Yeah,
like,
he's a little bit of a show off, but he's not a dick.
Yeah, you think? I mean, he doesn't like when Sam asks, because they ask if the venison is, is like, is this venison from today's hunt? He's like, well, no, we haven't cured that yet. But he's not like, stupid, we haven't cured that yet. What a moron. Sam just like. His father's the only one, and it's kind of neat to see that it's not like a whole family of douchebags. It's just the one douchebag in charge of the family, and kind of everybody has to deal with the fallout in their own way.
Yeah, it's just a man who's just a little too hard.
By the way, what a castle!
Yeah, like, that place is beautiful.
That's the sweetest castle, I think. I mean, it's not the the Eyrie and the Pike and everything. Those are like really cool locations, but this is maybe the biggest castle we've seen on screen. I think even King's Landing, the castle doesn't look that big.
Yeah, it's definitely got its space. Like it was just fascinating to see how big that actually took up on screen. It was only there for a second. It was the kind of obvious like, hey, we're just gonna make you think it's here, like the quick matte canvas style thing that they used to do. So
it looked fine. Tony. I mean, I know that's what they did, but I didn't look at that and think like, that looks fake. I knew it was fake because I'm not stupid, but it didn't look fake. But it was that was just something superficial. And we get Heartsbane is the name of the sword, right? Like that's a big plot point we're seeing here. Really, the only function that this serves is for Sam to go and pick up that sword. Like as a story point, it's great to have that drama between him and his dad. Go ahead.
They very clearly stated, like, this is one of a rare bit of swords. It's just Valyrian steel. And it's like, well, we know exactly what Valyrian steel is used for. And it is a really cool-looking giant broadsword. It almost looks too big for his hands.
I mean, any of those broadswords, I think claymores are just giant. And Sam's not a huge guy. But it was interesting to see him stuck sort of in that old mode of thinking, right? Like he's gotten a lot more self-confidence, not a ton, but more than he had,
and he reverted back to like being kind of a coward.
Isn't that sort of the way though? When you get back around family, when you get back around the people that know you, they're, a prophet is not without honor, saving his own country, as the saying goes. You can be famous everywhere else, but when you get back with family, they don't care.
Yeah.
And he doesn't. His dad doesn't. Even if his dad knew, even if his dad like had been there to see him stab the White Walker or the White, he would have been like, "Eh," and just he's never gonna get respect from this guy.
Yeah.
It's just not gonna happen.
And it's like even as like a Meister for the Night's Watch, his sister and his mom are like, it's a very important function, and it is. Like you become like one of the healers and one of the most important people at Castle Black.
Yeah, he's the advisor to the Lord Commander, and the Lord Commander can change over the time, but the Maester, as long as he's alive, is going to be there.
So what did the old Maester say? He served under like 20 different commanders of the Night's Watch.
Right. Granted, he lived to be like 150 or something, but I don't know for sure that Sam's going to make it that far. He may not even make it back to Castle Black. And if he does, the wall might be down by that point. Somebody did point out that if Bran goes back north of the wall, because he has that mark on him now, I know we're going back to Bran a little bit, but that the Whites can follow him because there's nothing, that once they have their mark on him, once he's somewhere, they can get through that. So that might be how the wall comes down, which I
all
thought
the magic is just like because of that mark. The magic has so much less effect on the world. At least the stuff keeping them out.
I did like his. There was a great turn with Sam where he's about to leave. He says, "Okay, he's gonna accept that his dad's gonna protect Gilly and the son, even though the dad's gonna put Gilly to work in the kitchens or whatever." But you kind of get that Gilly doesn't really mind. I mean, she's been through much worse already. Like from her childhood, I think that being put to work in a kitchen is probably a pretty good step up from, being raped by your father over and over throughout your life. So she's like, this is nice. There's nice weather.
It seems like it would even be pleasant to work in that castle. Like, it's just a nice place. Like, you'd have your quarters and everything.
And the mom and the daughter would probably be cool to her. They wouldn't treat her bad. And even though the dad's a dick, he doesn't seem like, a raping dick. So,
Yeah.
maybe
I don't know.
that
He seems like one of those guys that might have been at like the Trident or something and took some loot on the end.
Well, I'm sure he's not. He has many, many problems. I'm just saying that wasn't the kind of thing that he would disdain her, too much to even look at her that way. It's like, ugh, the wildlings.
Yeah.
With his with his super racism that he has. But it was neat to see that, to have him go and take the sword, and to see that moment. Although it does make me wonder, okay, what happens now? Like, he has to take care of a kid, and a wife and kid while he's a maester. The maesters aren't doubly not allowed to have to be married. I think that's how that works. I don't think you can be married and be a maester. So
yeah, I've never seen any of the maesters ever mention anything about a wife or kids or anything like that.
Right, and he's already a member of the Night's Watch. He's not supposed to have a wife or a kid. I mean, maybe he just gets to bend the rules because he's Sam. Who knows? But that I don't know where that's going. But he has a sword now, so that's cool. Speaking of swords and people getting swords, we get back to Arya in this episode, and whoo boy, this was the best part of this episode for me, Tony.
Well, she finally had some advancement in this whole storyline that's been going on since mid last season, since she actually got to the House of Black and White. Like, it feels like she's finally made her choice. And so, let's set the scene. She's back in front of the kind of bad play, even though the lady she's been sent to kill is actually a pretty good actress. Everyone else is kind of hacky. And she's watching Joffrey's death, which has got to be kind of relieving compared to the other stuff she had to watch.
Well, she's enjoying it. She knows, I think she kind of knows that some of it isn't exactly accurate. She knows that this is propaganda, but she's also like, this guy killed my dad, and I get to watch him die over and over again. This is the best play ever. She's the only one laughing while everybody else is like, oh, man, it's sad he died. And even she is moved by the actress who she's supposed to be killing by saying, when she comes out and does her soliloquy about how she's sad that her son died, she gets moved, and then she sees the other actress behind her saying the lines along with her, sort of off camera, off screen, whatever, off to the side of the stage. Off stage, Tony, is the word I was looking for. My brain finally found it. Thank you, brain. And it was, she's already put the two and two together earlier. She says this lady is clearly jealous. She says that to what's his face? I forget his name, but the guy who she met way back in was it Castle Black?
No, it wasn't Castle Black. It was Harrenhal.
Harrenhal.
You're talking about Jaqen H'ghar.
Yes, thank you.
Or the face of Jaqen H'ghar, which like everybody just calls him that, even though I don't really think that's who he is anymore. I think they just put that face on it to be convenient for remembering.
It depends on. Well, I don't know. I don't know how that works. It is interesting to me that it's him and that one girl, and they're the only people who work in the House of Black and White.
Yeah, in the books it was like 9 other people or something like that. For a while, there were a lot of fan theories that they were the same person the whole time, till they finally appeared on camera together in like episode 3.
Yeah, they've been on camera together, so they're not the same person. And okay, I don't want to jump ahead, but so she talks with the lady after poisoning the drink, and there's a great moment where she looks in the mirror and sees herself. And in that moment, I think she's asking herself the question that everybody else has been asking her over and over again. What's your name? Are you no one? Who are you? And she has to decide who she is, and she puts the poison in. I was like, I wanted her to go through with it. I was like, yes, she did with it. I don't know. Maybe I'm a bad person, Tony, but I wanted it to pay off after all these. It's been like a whole season that she's been in the House of Black and White, and I thought, okay, finally she's become no one.
Yeah, she's becoming death.
And then she talks to the lady, and I knew it was coming, and I didn't want it to come. I wanted her to kill the lady. Even though that's a horrible thing to want.
Well, I thought that she was going to kill the lady and then have all those second thoughts and all the hate and all the doubt towards herself. I thought it was going to go that way instead of like her rushing in and just swatting it away. But the talk she has, like, it really goes back to what you were saying with the mirror. The woman asks, "Do you like pretending to be other people?" Like, she's trying to ask her more in like the theater sense, but it really is her situation. It's like, are you willing to not be Arya ever again?
And I'm glad that she made her choice. Looking back on it now, I'm glad that she chose what she chose because it was the right choice. She's been right this whole time to be suspicious of the House of Black and White, but I wanted that to... part of me thinks that whole sequence of her being in the House of Black and White has just been a big stalling pattern for her character. Okay, guys, we want to move forward now. We want her to go do something. I guess she got trained. I mean, she's learned some things. She's learned how to fight. She's learned how to poison people. She's learned how to be sneaky to a degree. So she's not completely without character development, but yeah, she was so close to becoming no one, and then she decided to be someone still. And that was awesome, but a little bit frustrating also.
Yeah. And the way the scene ends is basically you see her going after Needle, and you see the waif going up to Jaqen and saying, "You promised me," like, so we're going to see the showdown between Arya and the waif.
Can I just say, I think that is where this episode should have ended. Because that was the one moment of real character movement in this episode. And even though it's not as big and dramatic and sort of fun as seeing Daenerys on the dragon, skipping forward to Daenerys on the dragon, and I'll elaborate on that. But Daenerys on the dragon is basically more of the same. We've already seen Daenerys on the dragon. We've already seen that the guys are following her. They're just pounding that nail in even further to end this episode with that. And I think that's part of the reason why a lot of people have said this episode's filler. I think if you ended on Arya, if you ended on that big sort of, oh, what's going to happen now with her, and the other girl the waif going to hunt her down, that would have had a little bit, it would have had more weight for me in the episode than the speech that she gives from the back, Daenerys gives from the back of the dragon.
Yeah, especially because they already set up how it could go down, because the last thing we see from Arya is she blows out a candle in the dark in a hallway, and I keep thinking that the way it's got to happen is that the waif is going to attack her, and she fights her, and basically blows out the candles, and because of the time she spent in darkness, she knows how to fight the waif.
That's a really good... Oh, that's a great thought. See, that's what I want now. That's what I wish that it ended on that shot of her blowing out the candle and just go to darkness, and then,
you start hearing the noise and everything, like just steps coming in.
Well, I don't think we're going to go right into that happening later, although it does seem like a little bit... I'm not 100% sure. It's going to be a tough fight, is all I'll say, between Arya and the waif.
Yeah, considering the waif has pretty much rocked her world every time they fought.
So I don't know exactly how that's going to go. I think Arya probably will survive, but nobody has plot armor except for, Jon Snow and Tyrion and Daenerys. So I think that I don't know. It's interesting. That was the most exciting thing for me in the episode, and I wish that they didn't end it on that. I've already said it, but I'll go back and say the episode would have been stronger if they'd ended on the moments of character moving and saying, okay, she's changing, she's on the run, things have been shaken up compared to, again, what we got. We'll get to that in a little bit, though, the actual ending. We move on to King's Landing, where but Marjorie is about to make her walk of atonement.
You see Jaime Lannister on his horse, and you see the Tyrell forces coming up to the Septed Baelor.
Which I don't remember what the main Tyrell guy is, what his name is, but
his name is Mace.
Mace Tyrell. Oh, what a great name for what a douche weird not. I mean, not like
it's such a threatening name for like someone that is just not all that threatening.
He does
with his flower armor and his chubbiness.
He's just okay. He's not like I'm not going to disdain him too much, but he's certainly not a threat. And his speech to his guys is like, and I love that little cutaway to Jaime, just like, dude, just can we go ride now? Fine, give your speech. It was just a great moment of editing, and I think just to undercut him in this speech, just so you know, like hey guys, this is not a good speech. This
Yeah.
is not this. We'll have a better speech later.
Yeah. Well, it's like the person who really inspires anything in that family is his wife anyway.
Yeah, so
the
they
eldest
go
Tyrell.
and they're about to have their showdown with the High Sparrow. Oh, I totally skipped over the thing that sets this up though. How did I skip over that? I have it in my notes, don't I? I have it in my notes, Tony. Yeah, here
You're
it is.
prepared.
It's right before. It's right after Sam going home and before Sam going to dinner. It was we got talking about Sam. So to set this scene up, Tony, let's go back. King Tommen goes to talk to the High Sparrow, and the High Sparrow's like, "Hey, you want to talk to your wife?" We go back to that set we've been getting so much use out of, and this scene was really not out of place. I'm not saying like it didn't fit. But I was watching
the way Marjorie
this.
was acting really, really didn't fit.
Yes, I swear to you, I thought it was somebody. We've seen people shapeshift in this show before, and she was very sincere sounding, and that does not line up with anything we've seen of her before.
I didn't think, I thought the words she was saying, if you read them out on paper, would be sincere, but not the way she acted them. Like, it felt like there was a little bit of hollowness to them.
She said it sincerely enough to convince him.
Yeah.
At least. And I didn't know what... I was like, are they listening? Is she trying to psych them out? The High Sparrow knows her better than this. And so I didn't understand what that was setting up, to the point, again, where I legitimately thought maybe somebody else is, like, wearing her face and psyching out Tommen. And then we get to the soldiers showing up. She's about to take her walk of atonement, or we think she's about to. I'm sure there's a lot of people who were hoping that she was about to.
Well, you can go back to season 2 if you really want to see that.
She's there on the steps. There's a bunch of people there. As we mentioned, the soldiers come in. Jaime rides his horse up to the High Sparrow, and there's a couple of shots here where you see a wide of the forces that the Tyrells have amassed and all their horses, and then you see the people, and the people outnumber the soldiers by a good amount, even with their horses and their spears.
It's a situation that could break very badly at any second.
Yeah, and it's showing that dynamic of the power versus the people, right? Which I think is a very strong theme through all of this, of the commoners rising up and having more power compared to the elite. And we see that with Daenerys. We see that somewhat at the Wall, where they're finally letting in the wildlings.
You even hear that during a thing that happens later with Walder Frey, where they're talking about the unbannered rallying the locals.
Right, which is another callback from like 3 or 4 seasons, a while back, several seasons ago. And it's not something anybody says anything about, but it is, I think, a very purposeful moment to show you this is the power and this is the people, and the people outnumber the power. And if they really want to, I mean, some of them are going to die if they go to war here, but they might not actually be able to pull this off. But the High Sparrow, after saying, "Hey, we're totally willing to die," and you think, "Oh, it's going to go down. It's going to go down." He says, "But we don't have to, because," and he drops the biggest bomb.
It was a bomb I didn't see coming, even though I should have.
Well, again, they set it up with this Tommen and Marjorie scene, but I was so thrown off by just trying to figure out what Marjorie's deal was. I didn't understand what was happening, and Tommen's like, "Hey, we're both on the same side here. The gods and the king and the church are all one big happy family, and you guys need to stand down. And my wife has made her atonement because she convinced me to do the right thing."
And we somehow had these breastplates made up for my new Kingsguard that have the 7-pointed star of the religion and the crown.
Well, I mean, did you have a problem with... Is that where your suspension of disbelief
perks, a little bit. I was like, the High Sparrow doesn't have any money. Where did he get those breastplates made?
Money.
Yeah, but the king just decided that like the day before.
Blacksmiths.
It takes time.
Blacksmiths, Tony.
They probably had to go to like 16 committee meetings on how they wanted to design the banner and everything.
like a graphic designer. Just imagining that it had to happen, right? Like the people who designed banners and house logos and stuff in actual Middle Ages, they had graphic designers way back then. They just called them artists, I guess.
Yeah.
But we're gonna bang this out fast, you guys.
Get Don Draper.
I think that's a little bit of a nitpick there.
I know,
Tony.
but I
I'm
just
gonna
thought
let
it was
that
funny.
go.
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna not stop watching the show because they got those shields banged together so fast. I think.
I wasn't saying I was gonna stop or anything. I just thought it was funny. They even got the logo out behind the Iron Throne quickly too.
Yes, they did. Those blacksmiths are on point in King's Landing. Maybe what's his face is back there. Gendry.
Yeah.
Maybe he's back in
Just found
Just,
Gandry
like, off
somewhere
screen.
since he's been off screen for like 2 seasons now.
Like, you were a pretty good blacksmith back in the day. Why don't you bang these out? Like, I don't look like King Robert. And I said, I don't even know why you bring that up. No, I don't. I mean, yes, I will definitely bang that out for you. Okay. Literally, I will bang it out with my hammer.
Before we go to the next scene, I want to talk about like the flashback we kind of went over where we actually got to see the Mad King, like in Bran's
for
visions.
Like half a frame. Well, I mean, you can't have half a frame, but like for like 2 or 3 frames in a go. And we talked about this at the end of the last episode where the Mad King is yelling about burn them all, burn them all, burn them all, burn them all. And there has been some speculation, and really interesting speculation, that might, because it's intercut even with burn them all, and then we see the White Walkers. It really seems like they're sort of leaning on the idea that the Mad King could have actually been talking about the White Walkers when he was yelling about burn them all. Whether or not that was accidentally Bran putting it in his head in the past or the future,
Yeah,
I don't know.
Like that'll probably come about with him not fully knowing what his powers can do. Like he saw what could happen with Hodor, but I'm wondering whenever he tries to go like full warg or whatever, whenever he can actually go through time, he's probably going to make some severe mistakes because he has no guidance.
Yeah, it's interesting the history of that, and the idea that the previous Three-Eyed Raven was trying to download everything into Bran's head or soul or whatever, that he was transferring all of his knowledge of the history of the world from all of his sort of walks, and Bran doesn't have it in easily digestible chunks. He just got the whole raw file downloaded and kind of all at once has history just shoved into his mind and doesn't have it sorted out or in any way coherent that he can figure out. So he's got all this crap just blasted into him. And I don't know how that's going to go or what that exactly is going to add up to, but it's an interesting developments. I want to see how that plays out.
Yep, me too. Anyway, back to the main story. I just wanted to bring that up because it was at the top of my notes because it was the very first thing we see in the episode.
Well, thank you. I was eating, not a burrito. What are the Chinese burritos called?
Egg rolls.
I was eating an egg roll at that time, and I didn't have my notes up. I was like, I'll get them in a minute. I had, have egg roll sauce all over my fingers. Duck sauce, that's what it's called. Chinese salsa.
Chinese burrito. It's past Al's bedtime. We're going to keep rolling, though.
I'm good. I feel amazing. We're just going to keep rolling. Fallout from the king getting turned to the Seven is that he says to Jaime, hey, listen, dude, not cool that you're trying to rise up against the church. Not going to kill you or put you in the dungeon or anything, but you are banished from King's Landing and sort of, we know by extension, his sister. And he gets sent to deal with the Blackfish, who is holed up in Riverrun. Which, so Riverrun's the castle that spans the river, right? It's the castle with the 2 sides on either side of the river?
No, that's Walder Frey's thing. That's the twins.
Oh, okay. Okay, I was thinking, I couldn't remember the name of Walder Frey's castle. I thought it was Riverrun. But we see Walder Frey, they're trying to take back that castle, or he's sending out people to do that. He's not able to do it. He's got, his guys are coming back saying, people don't like us, which Walder Frey is really a small fry. You kind of get the sense that he plays the Game of Thrones, but he's kind of a pawn. He just he survives by being slimy and...
Yeah, he was kind of like Balon like that.
Right.
Balon could do a little more damage, though. Although I guess one of the biggest damages that's ever been done in the series was directly related to Frey, so maybe not.
Yeah, but he doesn't know how to lead. He's not a leader. He can act. He can stab some people in the back, but he's clearly not inspiring anybody to follow him. He's got his guys, but everybody else in the country is revolting against him. They got the Brotherhood Without Banners. You've got Blackfish taking River Run. You've got all these other houses that they name off. They're like, we're not following you. And he's sort of stuck on his own with the company that he's made, which is with the Lannisters. So they're, and that's how, again, that's sort of taking it out of order, but that's why Jaime gets sent to River Run, because he's like, okay, guys, I killed your thing. You need to kill my thing that's bothering me now.
And somehow, like, Blackfish just really quickly rallied enough people to take River Run back. So, and you see a lot more of this in the trailer that's to come, where Jaime actually is knocking on the door of River Run, like his forces are outside, and you see both of them together for the first time.
Right, and Frey has somebody that pertains to Blackfish's nephew or his son or something. I didn't quite understand what was happening there.
Yeah, it was like the Red Wedding was multiple weddings, and one of them was the Tully family marrying one of Frey's daughters.
Okay.
And so they ended up doing that, and he kept him in a dungeon ever since he married his daughter and has held him as leverage. Or at least that was kind of insinuated.
Okay. So, and the idea is that he will definitely kill him if he feels like it, if it'll help, here's your son or your nephew or whatever. Was it his nephew?
It was his nephew.
Okay. If you don't give up, you get the axe. Jaime going out into to the black, to deal with this castle with River Run is something that that happened in the books. Book 4, this whole storyline played out, and that's why we'll get into a little bit of speculative spoilers here for those of you who kind of know about that part of the show, where we don't know what's going to happen next, but we kind of know what happens in the books and stuff that could happen in the show still. When Jaime goes out to deal with this problem in the books, that is when he meets up with Lady Stoneheart. And that seems like it could very well be still to come, especially
really
with
it is. I only know
all of the fan theories that they've paid off.
Yeah, I only know a tiny bit about Stoneheart, so I don't even want to know all the spoilers. I'm excited to see what they can do based on the very little I've read.
Well, he also... Do you get the sense that he's not great when he's around Cersei? Like, he had some really good character development in season 3 and 2, and then he gets back to King's Landing, and he, gets back with his sister, and everything turns to kind of crap for him. He goes back to his old ways, sort of like how Sam goes back to his old ways when he's around his father. You see, like, this guy could be something more noble, but when he's around Cersei,
she's just an emotional anchor to him.
Really, yeah. She's pulling him back. She's pulling him down. She thinks they think they need each other, and that's all great and everything, but he had progressed, and then he gets dragged back because he gets back into her circles again. So it'd be neat to see him go away out of her presence and deal with this stuff, and maybe... Sansa's headed that direction too, right? Not all that way. No, yeah, she's going to... she's going to get help from... Who was...
I believe she was heading to talk to some of the other smaller houses. I don't know if she was heading directly to River Run.
I thought she was going down to River Run, or that was one of...
I thought that's what Brienne was doing.
Well, what I'm saying is Brienne and Jaime meeting up again, in addition to sort of maybe possibly being part of that Lady Stoneheart storyline, also could really end up being something interesting, and him sort of getting back into that circle of things where he's encouraged to be a better person than when he's around Cersei.
Yeah. Actually, has some agency and does things on his own accord. Whereas right now, he's just... everything he does is basically in order. He hasn't influenced the plot in any way for a while now.
Well, and speaking of things that don't influence the plot, we get to the final scene of the episode with Daenerys and the Dothraki doing their thing, walking through the desert or whatever, and Daenerys just happens to psychically sense that there's a dragon, and goes and gets on the dragon and rides the dragon and gives a big speech. And I've already said my piece about this, but I think it was a weak ending. I don't think it puts Daenerys forward anywhere. I don't think it advances the story other than saying, like, hey guys, by the way, she has a dragon.
Back. That's like the main thing. And she's echoing a lot of the things that Khal Drogo said. So like she's kind of actually taking over that army in her own way. She's showing that they're willing to actually cross the sea for her. I understand why it's called filler for a lot of people, because it's not that important. We kind of knew these things were going to be happening.
She's important to the story, but getting to that part where she's important does feel somewhat like filler. And I think, again, this is why people feel like this whole episode is filler, is because you end on this scene that feels like it should have a lot of weight, but actually, if you take back and look at the mechanics of the story, doesn't. And even though it's a fine speech, it doesn't put us any further along. And so you end on this, you give this your big, like, here it is, here's our big ending, and cut to credits, and it sort of leaves you hollow. And the ending is so important in almost everything. And you write a story, you write a song, you sing a song, performances or anything. The ending is what people remember. The ending is the last thing that sticks in your head. And the reason I think this episode is kind of weak is they don't give it the strongest ending they could. They go for the special effects, they go for the big bombastic thing, but they don't go for the story impact, which I contest would be much, much more better served by having Arya pick up Needle and blow out the candle and cut to black. Setting us up for that and knowing that she has actually moved into a different part of her story now. Yeah,
it's interesting that an editing choice like that could have had so much of a different impact.
Well, yeah, and I don't think this was a bad episode, but it was weakened by that choice to me. And I'm not criticizing the whole episode. Last episode I mentioned, while the ending was great, and I think a lot of people, again, the last episode was very uneven for me, but the ending was amazing, and that's all people talked about, right? Everybody was like, oh my gosh, that ending, because that ending was amazing. And you get an ending like this, and despite the fact that this episode was probably less filler and less sort of, I don't want to say cringe, but that one scene with Daenerys and
Jorah the Explorer.
Jorah the Explorer!
I can't take credit for that one. I can't take credit for that one, but I giggled like you did whenever I first heard it.
Woo! Yes.
Try not saying that every time we talk about Jorah from now on. It's not happening. But anyway, this is usually the part of the show where we get into wild speculation.
Well, I think that, we've already speculated a lot. We already said the Lady Stoneheart thing. I think that's very likely. I think that Jaime meeting up with Brienne. One of the things I think people mean when they say filler, going back to that sort of criticism, is that this is setup. Yeah. Which I do think there's a lot of that. I think there's a lot of putting pieces in place to sort of have big payoffs later. And you have to put the pieces in place, okay? That does need to happen. You can't just have payoff all the time. But there was a lot of that. So a lot of the speculation, I think, has sort of been sprinkled through the episode. I wonder...
What about who's going to challenge the Mountain? It's going to be a trial by combat. Like, seriously, you don't have Oberyn anymore. Who's going to challenge, Robert Strong?
Who's in the kingdom? Who would be a great... That's an interesting question. First of all, are we sure that Robert Strong fights for Cersei?
Pretty sure. He carries her around, and, he was willing to take on an entire group of Tommen's men. Things like that. I think he's definitely on her side.
He might Tommen. Also be... Tommen can't order him to fight for the church?
He might be able to, but I think that's, that justice is, part of the church, isn't it? The gods ordain, the justice, so if she chooses him as a champion, and he accepts, then, he can't be ordered not to.
Okay. I don't know for sure exactly how all that works, but, man, that's a great question. Jaime obviously can't do it.
Yeah, he's still an okay swordsman, but he's left-handed. He just can't beat that.
Well, and just in general, he's going to be out of the area. there's an obvious choice here. I feel like that when we find out who it is, it's gonna be like, oh my gosh.
It's gonna be like the Knight of the Flowers or something like Loris.
Maybe.
Who wants to...
I just keep thinking that when the mountain wins, we see him take off that helmet and we see who it is.
Yeah.
And we see that it's... I'm still on board with that. Joffrey is the head of the mountain thing.
There's one thing a lot of people have been talking about on the forums, and it's the idea that the Hound is still alive.
Oh, see, there's the obvious one. There he is.
The Clegane Bowl.
And, and in the books,
The Grave Digger.
Rescued by a monk. He gets rescued by a spiritual dude.
Well, the monk kind of claims that he's like that he buried him and all this other stuff. So there's some ambiguity there. It's like one little scene with Brienne that kind of hints that he's still around.
I don't know. I mean, they may not even go into sort of the middle ground for that. They may not have the burial in the... He might just show up and be like, I'm here, y'all. I'm okay. I'm sort of messed up, but I'm here to fight. And oh, that would be awesome. I don't know how we're going to do that. But
I don't know if it's going to go down, but like, I'm just thinking ahead to like that fight would be awesome, and it's something we've been waiting for such a long time.
And for the church to, I mean, it would make perfect sense for the church to have him in their back pocket.
Yeah.
To me, I would not even need a lot of setup. I mean, maybe a little something, a little hint beforehand, but
give it like a 2-minute segment somewhere, and then just make it happen.
Or, like, I see somebody, like, way off in the, the Riverlands or whatever, get a raven and, it's, say to a guy with a really long hair, like, it's time. And he, you don't even see him, but you just see him, like, draw his sword.
You see him just eating some chicken.
I want to complain about something from the first episode, by the way. And I know that it's weird to go in episode 6, but the fact... I was excited about it in the first episode, and I'm annoyed they haven't done anything with it. So we finally had the Sand Snakes do something in the first episode. And at the first episode, I was like, yeah, right, this is cool. They're progressing that storyline finally. Turns out they weren't.
Yeah.
And I'm annoyed by that.
But it hasn't been mentioned yet.
Right, what was the point of that? Why did we have that if you weren't gonna... Are they going to show up at the end of the season and be like, oh, by the way, Dorne's in the fight now? I don't... There's nothing. There was no reason for that if you weren't gonna.
I mean, I guess they could have one of the Sand Snakes challenge to kill the mountain, like in a vengeance thing over their father. That could work too, but I don't know.
Do you really think any one of the Sand Snakes would be able to take him?
Probably
not. Oberyn couldn't take him, and I'm not.
Oh,
not
Oberyn
to diss
took
women,
him.
But
he just monologued.
Well, I guess they kind of sort of took each other out.
Yeah.
Oberyn didn't have somebody to bring him back. Could be Oberyn's head too, I guess. I know he couldn't see anything. Never mind. He wouldn't have his eyes.
That was some splatterage.
Never mind. That was dumb comments on my part.
Oh.
But I do. That's something that's been bugging me a little bit. That I was excited to finally see those girls do something, and then you're just cutting them out. Which, if you're gonna cut them out, then leave them doing something for later. Maybe I'm just being pedantic, and also you have not only them, sort of having their plot, but you left behind old what's his face, Tyrion's old buddy. What's his name? What? No. The guy who fought with him.
Oh, Bronn.
Bronn
gets mentioned in this episode, but he doesn't get used.
Didn't they say they were leaving him behind in Dorne to look over them?
I can't even remember that. Like, that's just...
I thought
You're probably right, but I don't recall that particular thing happening.
Like, he's behind enemy lines, and he has been for all of this time. We're not doing anything with that. Just give me, like, a scene of him in a tavern listening to some people talk or whatever, just so that I haven't forgotten that he's a thing. Anyway.
Yeah, now we're getting into some odd territory. I think we're going to call this episode. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you for supporting us. If you go to humanechoes.com, there's a lot of other cool ways you can support us. Number one way is by becoming a member. Gets you access to our bonus podcast. You can also buy some t-shirts or click on the Amazon link on the right-hand side. Anything you buy on Amazon after clicking that link, we get a nice 6 to 8% cut depending on how much you end up buying. That's a really cool thing. Doesn't cost you anything extra.
And I just want to remind everybody that if Arya fights the waif, no one wins. Also, can't take credit for that. Stole that from Reddit. I'm not sorry.
All right. You guys have a good one.
Bye, guys.